welcome back to the Influential Personal Brand Podcast Recap. It's your man, Rory Vaden, breaking down the interview with my longtime friend, Todd Henry, all about accessing your creativity, which I think is just super relevant, right? And I guess it's funny because I've known about Todd's work for years, but now, more than any other time, I think in my career, do I feel like we're playing in the space of creativity on a regular basis. And I would say even feeling like creativity is a core component of succeeding in the workplace today. And I would say probably my first biggest takeaway from the interview with Todd was even just kind of reframing what is creativity and what should we think about and what does he think about, or someone who's spent a lifetime studying this, which is that creativity is just problem solving. That's it. Creativity is problem solving, and there's constant problems. I mean, this is the story of being an entrepreneur. It's the story of being a leader. It's the story of being a parent. It's the story of building a personal brand or building an empire. It's like life is basically just a series of one problem after the next, after the next, after the next. And the problems just get, bigger and different and more complex the more successful you get. And a lot of the most fundamental problems you never resolve completely, right? Like, what are we eating for dinner, and how do we keep the house clean, and what are we wearing, and like there's just this rhythm of life that is a steady stream of problems. And so if you don't have creativity, or if you're not developing that, then I think you're going to really struggle. And I'm realizing that, oh my gosh, this is an essential skill that isn't just relevant to artists, but relevant to all of us. And, so I think this first takeaway, there's two big definitions that are in this. So one is, what is the definition of creativity? I think Todd defines it as problem solving, which will stick with me. The other was, what's the definition of art? And I think the way that Todd said it was, he said that art is an expression of values, right? So it is your values, the things that you care most about, the things that you believe in, the things that you buy into, the ideals that you hold, the principles that you know to be true. It is those things codified, manifested, extrapolated, transformed into some expression. Whether it's, a painting, a song, a movie, a book, a speech, a course, like a business. I mean, I think business is art. Like creating a business is nothing other than expression of values. I think it's like, I love that definition, because if you go, okay, well, core values are to a business what personal philosophies are to an artist. So your personal viewpoints and philosophies come out as the expression of art. Well, if you're an entrepreneur, your business basically is that. I mean, it is that an entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur is our chance to create a reflection in the world of the things that we believe, the things that we hold value to, the things that we most trust and we believe to be true and that we want to see more of in the world. And so I think that is a really fascinating way of seeing it, is that art is this expression of values. Business is an expression of values. And I think when you know that it's art when it moves people emotionally. We talk about that in World-Class Presentation Craft, which is, our course on teaching people how to speak from stage and the mastery level stage mechanics of what separates the greatest speakers in the world from everyone else. And it is all about, can you move the audience emotionally? Do they have some type of visceral response in their body to the things that you are saying? And, some of those are techniques, but that you can do, there's things that you can practice, and we teach a lot of those, but a lot of it is more of It is aligning your art, your presentation, your masterpiece, your creation, being in alignment with your uniqueness, the things that you believe. So that was really beautiful, and I really loved that, and I loved the practical application of that also with kind of like this artistic juxtaposition was really good. Now, the second big takeaway that I want to highlight is how do you find like what art you should create? I mean, in Brand Builders Group, right, we would call this finding your uniqueness. It is always the first thing that we do with every client is we help them identify their uniqueness. It's a thing that so many people struggle with. It's almost a thing where it's like it's kind of impossible to like figure it out yourself. You need help doing it. It's really, really difficult to nail this. But if you nail this, I mean, it changes everything. It changes everything because you're being the person that only you can be. And I love what Todd said here, which is another way, or I would say a hint or a clue or a suggestion. You could say, I guess a shortcut, probably not a shortcut, but maybe corroborating evidence for you to find your uniqueness. Here's what he said. This is my second takeaway. The thing that you're most equipped to put into the world is the thing that feels most obvious to you. The thing that you're most equipped to put into the world is the thing that feels most obvious to you. It's parallels kind of what we say a lot, which is that you're most powerfully positioned to serve the person that you once were. And that's because you know in full integrated detail what it's like to be that person. So it is obvious to you because it's what you have done, it's what you have lived, not just what you have learned about. And I think the way that he comes at it here and the way he says it is kind of like a different presentation of the same core concept, which is what's most obvious to you. What is the thing that you do without trying? What is the thing that you do naturally? What is the thing that you're gifted at? What are you? Like, what have you become? What superpowers have you naturally developed over the course of your life? These things that you don't think are special, there's a huge need out in the world because other people have not gone through what you've gone through. They haven't walked the path that you have walked down. And so you're super equipped to help those people, which is amazing. It's amazing when you tap into this because this is a gift. Like this is such a great blessing that your personal brand is built not on having to create something out of scratch, not on having to manufacture ideas out of thin air, but rather to express things you already are, to convey things that you've already been doing, to translate the very persona and history and experience that you have lived. The more that we can access that, the faster and the shorter the distance to you breaking through with your personal brand. And a lot of times it is the thing it's so obvious to you that you don't even notice it. I would say that a lot. Like a lot of our clients, like it's such an ingrained part of them. Like their uniqueness is such an ingrained part of them that they can't see it because they're so close to it that it's almost like they question like, well, why would this have any value in the world? Like surely no one would care about that. They have the curse of knowledge, right? They automatically assume and believe that everyone else out there in the world knows the same things that they know. And they don't because they haven't studied, they haven't researched, to use the brain DNA helix term. They haven't researched the same things that you have researched. They don't have results doing the same things that you're doing. They don't have the same passions. They haven't tried to solve the same problems. And so it's like, it's hard to see. So that's really, really important. And even though it's hard to see, it's a place to start with is, what is most obvious to you? Like, what is the problem you have most overcome? What is the path that you have walked down? Or as Todd said it, you're most equipped to put into the world the thing that feels most obvious to you, which by way of the curse of knowledge, you probably think has no value in the world because you assume that everybody knows it just because you do, and they do not. My third takeaway, and I would say this one was my favorite part of that entire conversation, is the difference of pursuing a craft versus pursuing stardom. This is the difference between pursuing a craft versus pursuing the stardom. And it actually reminds me, so one of our longtime pals is John Acuff, and we saw John at church a few weeks ago, and we were just having this conversation. We hadn't seen each other in a while, and he said something about how far we've come over all these years. And, I told him, I said, yeah, honestly, I think it has more to do with the fact that you and I have just stuck around than anything else. Like, we have weathered so many storms. Like, we've been in this space now for 15 years. I mean, I met John, AJ and I met John 12 years ago now. And so it's like we've known him for 12. He was already, just like us. He had been around in a while. And it's like, I think what we've both been doing is like we're pursuing a craft, right? We want to get really good at what we do, which is we want to get really good at helping people. We want to get really good at providing solutions, really good at providing answers. And when you do that, you have true staying power. I mean, it's so powerful because you're not constantly tied to the results of your last post, right? Like, you're not constantly consumed with how many video views did I get, how many podcast downloads, or even your last book, right? It's like, yeah, if the book sells or not. I mean, it's one part of this lifelong journey that is your craft. But you'll see a lot of times when people are like, oh, I just, like, I feel like I need to just like do this one thing. Or if they're just pursuing stardom, like they just want to have a lot of followers, like, you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out, or you're going to look for shortcuts, or you're going to make a lot of sacrifices because you're ultimately serving something that isn't that significant in terms of its staying power and its lasting power. And it's a little bit of a trick because look at, like, at Brain Builders Group, right? We win when our clients win. Like, we love when our clients get hundreds of thousands of followers or millions of TED Talk views, or they, hit the New York Times bestseller list, or they land, six-figure consulting deals, all things that happen, and recently they've been on a pretty regular basis. But even those things, it's like we want those things to happen for our clients, but they're not what we measure success by, because it's like, first of all, certain parts of those things can kind of be like manufactured, right? And the reality is going, but it's not these external achievements or these vanity metrics that change anyone else's life, nor do they provide the kind of meaning and deep satisfaction that a true mission-driven messenger seeks in their own life. They're certainly not bad. They're great things. We want them to happen. It's just not how we measure success at Brain Builders Group, because, we focus on reputation over revenue. We want revenue. We want wins. We want money. We want likes. We want followers. We want views. We want all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we're more focused on helping people figure out, what are you called to do that nobody else can do? Like, what problem were you put here on this earth to solve that nobody else can solve? And, focusing and standing your identity, grounding your identity more in that is much more significant and long-lasting. And it's going to be a greater source of fulfillment and satisfaction, even if for some reason it wasn't going to bring more money. And over the long term, we are convinced that it absolutely does. But there are certain things that do create more results short term. I mean, there are certain topics and there's certain things you can do. Like, anything sexual, anything outrageous, anything to do with money. Like, there are certain topics that just naturally draw more attention. Anything that's based on celebrities, there's things that you can do to kind of manufacture short-term attention. But if that topic or that thing isn't what you want to spend your life doing, it's like you can't chase that, because you'll eventually be running from an empty tank. So pursue mastery of craft. Don't pursue stardom. Pursue figuring out, how can I help versus how can I become known? And if you do that, you likely will grow your influence, and you will have all of these amazing things happen to you. And that really, really was powerful to hear Todd talk about that, especially since he's spent a life around so many creatives, is to just really pursue that craft and don't get caught up. Resist the temptation to be caught up in the fame and the vanity metrics and the stardom and, whatever word you want to call it, because it's not ultimately what changes lives, and it's not what's going to bring you satisfaction. But find what's the message you could spend your life sharing. What's the problem you could dedicate your life to solving? Who is the audience that you could dedicate your life to serving?